Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver. We got a great show for you guys today. The Sweet 16 ended yesterday, and man, what games we had last night and Saturday as well. Also, we've got the Elite Eight starting tonight. We got 2 straight games tonight. We got back-to-back games tomorrow night. And then the Final Four, I guess, tips off on Friday, and then the National Championship game will be played a week from today. So, man, we got a lot coming up in college basketball. Major League Baseball starts this Thursday, April Fool's Day, so cannot wait for that. We've got a great show for you guys today, though. We're, of course, going to discuss March Madness, going to discuss the buyout market and why people who criticize the Brooklyn Nets for getting LaMarcus Aldridge are total hypocrites. I'll discuss that later in the show. Also, what Andre Drummond contributes to the Lakers now that he has been signed. Also, once again, the U.S. men's national soccer team missed the Olympics badly. And also, final topic of the day, NFL 17-game regular season looks like it's going to happen. Why I think this is not a good idea and why the players are absolutely right in pushing back on it. That is all coming up next. Also, a week from today, just go ahead and tease it. Had a great interview with Dr. John Deloney. The podcast episode is going to be uploaded next week. If you don't know who Dr. John Deloney is, he is at Ramsey Solutions. He's got his own podcast over there. He's a mental health expert, right? And of course, mental health has been something I've discussed in this show. Something I'm really passionate about. So really appreciate him stopping by for the interview. And it will be available next Monday morning. Probably around 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm still, working out the kinks of when that'll be available. So without further ado, let's get into the Sweet 16 and what a weekend we had. I mean, crazy weekend. So first of all, I went 5-3 in my picks. Okay. Listen, all of our brackets are dead by this point. Who cares, right? Now it's just about enjoying college basketball. By this stage of the bracket, I don't care who you are. Whatever year this is, nobody's bracket's good. So now it's about just enjoying the games. And by the way, let me first of all, let me give a shout out to the women's tournament. That Texas game last night, what a game! That was the game of the weekend. Just got to give the Longhorns plenty of credit. The ladies over there, plenty of credit for that unbelievable win. I do think they will fall in the Elite Eight, though. I've got UConn and South Carolina meeting in the national championship, and I think that'll be a great contest. But let's go and start. As we got a comment here from my man Ryan Flowers. U.S. men's soccer needs to be disbanded. Yeah, it's bordering on that, isn't it? I'll say my thought. I'd love to respond to that, but I'll save my thoughts for later in the show. So y'all be sure to stick around for that. Thank you, Ryan, for the comment. But again, unbelievable games. You look at Oregon State first of all. Now Oregon State, by all the college basketball experts, they're going to finish last in the Pac-12. At least that's what they were predicted to finish before the season. And they weren't great in the regular season. I mean, they weren't. But they run the table in the Pac-12 tournament, which, of course, you win your conference tournament, you automatically get into the NCAA tournament. If you're not that great in the regular season, but you get hot, you win the tournament. Usually you're a 12 seed. But then you look, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of UConn. It reminds me of Kemba Walker's UConn team back in 2011 when they weren't that great in the regular season. Then they won their tournament. I think they were in the Big East at the time, if I remember correctly. They win their conference tournament, and then they go on a Cinderella run through March Madness and win the national championship. And so you look at Oregon State, and I picked Loyola Chicago to win and get to the Elite Eight. I thought Loyola would probably lose after that, but hey, give Oregon State a ton of credit. In the Pac-12, by the way, the Pac-12 is 13-2 in the tournament. And that's incredible. And by the way, one of those losses is from Oregon in the final game of the Sweet 16, and Oregon lost to a Pac-12 team, their in-city rival, USC. And so props to the Pac-12. I think the ACC went like 4-7. They were terrible. Arkansas is the last team left in the SEC. Michigan, my pick to win the national championship. They're the last team left in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is 8-8. So, Michigan's just kind of carrying it from this point forward. So we got 3 big, Pac-12 teams left. It's USC, UCLA, and Oregon State. And let's talk about the UCLA-Alabama game, which was no question the game of the weekend. I thought Alabama would win fairly easily. Dead wrong about that. Of course, you had a back-and-forth contest. You had a questionable Non-call on a charge in which the kid's driving. Alabama player steps in front of him. Looked like a charge to me. That was just my personal opinion. As we have another comment right here. Gonzaga, USC is going to be, man, I can't wait for that one. Ryan, I can't wait for that one because USC has been straight punking people. I mean, they destroyed Kansas. They destroyed Kansas in the second round. We get to the Sweet 16, and Oregon upset Iowa, who I thought was a really good team led by a great player, Luka Garza. And USC, took care of Oregon in short order. And so that's going to be Gonzaga's first test. I said Gonzaga's first test would be around the Sweet 16 Elite Eight. Now, of course, they rolled Creighton yesterday afternoon, so that wasn't that surprising. Creighton's a good team, but they never had a chance against Gonzaga. But then you look down the list. Baylor took care of Villanova. Villanova, you know what I think of Jay Wright. I think he's one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in America. Great recruiter, great coach. And Arkansas, Oral Roberts, by the way. Oral Roberts had a 12-point lead in the second half and was that close on a buzzer-beating 3 to advancing to the Elite Eight. Of course, the kid got a good look. Just wasn't able to capitalize on it, and Oregon advanced. My issue with Oregon, and this is why I think they're going to lose tonight to Baylor. Oregon, I think they said like 6 of their last 7 games have trailed by double digits. They can't trail by double digits tonight against Baylor. They can't. They can't get off to a slow start and hope to come back. I know they can get hot from the 3-point line. They can't get off to a slow start against Baylor. And of course, tonight, the first game, Oregon State, Houston. Man, this is a hard one. This is a hard one because I said before the tournament, wouldn't shock me if Houston got to the Final Four. They have gone under the radar all season long. They're a great basketball team. But then you have Oregon State, who's played excellent basketball in March, which we all know that's all that matters. You play great basketball in March, you're going to have a shot. You're going to have a shot. And Oregon State have done just that. And so you got that game tonight at 7:15 Eastern on CBS. Vegas likes Houston a lot, -8. And then, of course, the second game tonight, you got Arkansas and Baylor at 9:57, so almost 10 o'clock Eastern. Also on CBS, Vegas, of course, likes Baylor, the 1 seed, -7.5. I'm going to take Houston in a close game, beating Oregon State, and I will take Baylor to beat Arkansas by, I'll go 10, 11 points. Again, Arkansas has gotten off to some slow starts. I got a buddy who's an Arkansas fan. Sorry. But I can't see any way the Razorbacks can get it done. The SEC didn't do as well as I thought it might do in the tournament. Then tomorrow, you got USC Gonzaga. Of course, Ryan Flowers, go check out his show, Clutch Sports Talk Live. He was saying, hey, USC Gonzaga is going to be a great game. And I totally agree. I mean, USC, the Mobley kids, the Mobley brothers, man. I mean, those kids are dominating. Just embarrass. They don't just beat, they embarrass Kansas. And then they turn around last night and just take care of Oregon fairly easily. And so now they're playing who most people believe to be the best team in college basketball. Certainly come on, they're 29-0. I mean, you got, and they haven't really played any close games. But this will be Gonzaga's first test. As you know, I heard one of the analysts on CBS in the pregame show or the postgame show say, "Hey, look, Gonzaga's a great basketball team, but no national championship is easy. I mean, it is hard to be this dominant and sustain it all the way through the season. Of course, the games get harder each and every round, and so that's going to be the case with Gonzaga and USC. I think USC is going to give Gonzaga problems. I really do. It would not shock me if USC got the upset. I think they're that good of a team. And I sorely underestimated them. I actually had them going 1 and done and losing to, I think I had them losing to the winner of Wichita State and Drake. And now they're a win away from the Final Four, but they're going against the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. So I'm going to take Gonzaga to win. I got them winning. Let's go by 6 or 7. I'll settle on 7. They'll win by 7 points. It'll be a tight game with about 3 minutes left, but then Gonzaga's defense will tighten up. They move the ball so well. The one kid, the point guard, I can't remember his name. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. He's great point guard. Seems like a good leader too. That his teammates seem really like him. And so I'll take Gonzaga. I think their defense will really tighten up down the stretch of that game tomorrow night, which tips off at 7:15 Eastern on TBS. Vegas likes Gonzaga a lot, -9. Of course, nobody blames them for that. I'm going to take Gonzaga to beat USC by 7. I think they'll hit some free throws down the stretch, and then they'll close the deal and advance to the Final Four. Let's go to the final game tomorrow to close out the Elite Eight. I can't wait for this one. You got two true college basketball blue bloods. Of course, one more than the other when you look at history. You got UCLA, who started in the first 4. So they were in the play-in game against Michigan State and, won by the skin of their teeth. That was a great basketball game. I think it was the last game in the first 4. They beat Michigan State just to get in the tournament. And here they are going from the first 4 to now being one win away from the Final Four. It's a interesting story. And you heard me talk about last week. You said, "Oh, Bryson, I thought you don't want the lower seeds to advance far in the tournament." If the lower seeds are Loyola Chicago, Abilene Christian, Ohio, Oral Roberts, no, I don't want them winning the national championship. But even as an 11th seed, UCLA. I mean, come on now. This is the greatest coach of all time, coach of UCLA, John Wooden. The greatest college basketball player of all time, without a doubt, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was at the time Lou Alcindor. I mean, you look at his numbers, the awards, the accolades he accomplished in college, and it's just silly. I mean, it's unbelievable what he did back. I believe this was the 60s at UCLA under Coach Wooden. And so you got UCLA, who's just gotten on a roll, right? They've beaten some really good basketball teams. Of course, they won an amazing game last night against Alabama, and I got to give UCLA credit on this. They're playing that game against an Alabama team I think we all assume is a better team. Problem is, Alabama was awful from the free throw line. I think they might have shot under 50%. I mean, they were terrible from the free throw line last night. And UCLA outplays them the entire game. And it comes down to the final shot, and the kid for Alabama hits one from the March Madness logo, a buzzer-beating 3 to send the game to overtime. And I'm thinking, oh boy, momentum UCLA's momentum is gone. And they turn around and they win by 10. And so give them a ton of credit for turning around, saying, hey, we're going to overtime. We didn't lose the game. We might have blown the game, but we didn't lose the game. And again, props to them. Props to their head coach, Mick Cronin, great coach. Did a great job at Cincinnati when he was there. Tiger Campbell, love the way that kid plays. He's aggressive, good passer, good defensive player. So this is a team that wouldn't shock me if they went and beat Michigan. Now, Michigan, who was my pick to win the national championship, of course, number 1 overall seed, or not the number 1 overall seed, they were a 1 seed. Gonzaga's the number 1 overall seed. Michigan, they had a great regular season. Then they kind of tailed off a little bit, and they didn't play great in the Big Ten tournament and kind of disappointed. But they were the regular season champions. Juwan Howard has done an absolutely outstanding job at his alma mater. Of course, he was part of the Fab Five back in the early 90s. And so Michigan's in the Elite Eight, and they're playing, a UCLA team that is on fire. And so I'm going to pick Michigan because, look, if anything else, my national champion is still alive. So I got to go with them. It would have shocked me if UCLA won, not in the slightest. Not by the way they've been playing. They are absolutely capable. But then again, Michigan's been playing great too. They have flipped the switch in the tournament that they couldn't flip in the Big Ten tournament. But we all know, hey, NCAA tournament means way, 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 way more than the conference tournaments. Of course, they beat Texas Southern fairly easily to start. They beat LSU by 8. I actually thought it'd be a little closer. I thought LSU would compete a little bit more than they ended up doing. And then yesterday, I said on my show on Friday, Michigan, Florida State. I said, don't mess around. I mean, Florida State is underrated. Florida State is a really, really good team. They're a 4 seed for a reason. They were the best team in the ACC. Don't get caught up on Syracuse. Syracuse, the team that got hot. Buddy Boeheim, the son of Coach Boeheim at Syracuse, is a cool story. But they never really belonged to a tournament. And Houston, sent them home in the Sweet 16. But props to them on good run, but they didn't really belong in the tournament. But we saw Michigan and Florida State. And I said on Friday, I said, I got Michigan by a single point. I think this is going to be an amazing game, the best game of the weekend. And Michigan won by 18. And their defense was suffocating the entire game. Watch it from start to finish. Their defense was outstanding. They were in control of that game from the opening tip to the final buzzer. So I'm going to take Michigan, of course, because I did pick them to win the national championship, and I do think they're obviously a better team than UCLA. I'll take Michigan by, let's go 12. I'm going to go 12. Again, their defense was unbelievable down the stretch. You look at what UCLA has done, and you just got to tip your cap off to them. But I think their Cinderella run comes to an end in the Elite Eight, and Michigan advances to the Final Four. So that's my predictions for the Elite Eight. Of course, we'll know by next show what our Final Four is going to be. And I don't know. I think the Final Four is on Friday. Normally it's on Friday, and then the national championship game is on a Monday night, a week from this evening. So look forward to that. Again, in the women's tournament, I said before that tournament started, UConn with Paige Beckers, who's an unbelievable talent. This is what's messed up in my view, and it seemed like I've been talking a lot about kind of what's messed up when it comes to men's and women's sports recently. But hey, someone's got to talk about it. It's messed up to me that the women got to wait till I think they're 21, 22 years old, I think, or they got to play 3 years in college before they can enter the draft. It's like Paige Beckers is WNBA ready. I mean, she is a bucket getter. She's unbelievable. And then you look at South Carolina. Dawn Staley is incredible. Of course, Gino Auriemma is the best coach in women's college basketball at UConn. Nobody's taking that away from him. But on the other side of the bracket, at South Carolina, Dawn Staley is an amazing coach. Amazing coach. Doesn't get enough credit. And so I got South Carolina and UConn meeting in the national championship game. There's years past where in the last 3 or 4 years they really should have, but UConn would lose to Mississippi State at the buzzer. I remember the girl, she was like 4'9" or something and hit a buzzer beater to beat UConn, who had won 100 and something straight games. I mean, it was insane. I'll never forget it. It was a crazy game. And then the next year, UConn turns around and loses to Notre Dame basically on a buzzer beating shot. And so we haven't seen UConn in a national championship game in a while. I mean, it's been a minute. So I think they'll get there, though. They're an incredibly talented team, obviously well coached. So will South Carolina. Those two teams will meet in the national championship game, and I can't wait. So it's, can't wait to see what all I got to say is I got Michigan winning the men's tournament. That's all I'm going to say. Michigan Wolverines, go Big Blue, even though I'm wearing my Tennessee hoodie. Go Big Blue right now. I'm a Michigan fan for the next week because I believe a week from tonight, they will be crowned the national champions. I'm sticking with it. So let's move on to the NBA. And over the weekend, it was so funny. Before the first game, Loyola Chicago and Oregon State, I was sitting down. I was watching, a lot of times these networks will broadcast movies. Like last week, I watched Star Wars before one of the games. It's like, hey, might as well take in a good movie, man. It's the weekend. It's March Madness. Taking a good movie before you get into some great basketball, right? What could beat that? And so I'm watching a movie, and I get the notification on my phone from Woj, of course, because I got my notifications on for Adrian Wojnarowski and for, of course, Shams Charania, and then in the NFL, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport. And I get the notification on my phone. LaMarcus Aldridge plans to sign with the Brooklyn Nets after his buyout from the San Antonio Spurs. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. But then I sat back and thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I don't blame Brooklyn. I don't blame Aldridge either, by the way. He's had a average season by his standards. Of course, we all know he's a multi-time All-Star with Portland, and I think went to one All-Star game when he was with the Spurs. This season, he's averaging about 14 points a game, 4.5 rebounds. Nothing that blows you away. But he can still play. That's not garbage numbers, so he can contribute for them. And keep in mind something else before I get into the Nets and before I get into kind of my main point here about the hypocrisy behind what's going on is you have Blake Griffin, who hadn't dunked in a game since 2019. And we'd heard stuff, his knees bothering him. It's still giving him problems when he was with the Pistons. And he gets bought out by the Pistons. And his first game with the Nets, dunk, alley-oop. I mean, listen, it wasn't like the old Blake Griffin, jumping over cars and stuff, and jumping over Pau Gasol and dunking on his head, but man still has leaps. I mean, the man can still jump. And so he was just messing with us this whole time by saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to showcase what I can still do. I just went out of Detroit. They're rebuilding. And man, that's understandable for a player. Heck, a guy who people believe is the MVP right now, James Harden, did the same thing. I don't blame players for doing that. If you want to go somewhere else, if it makes you happy, then hey, I'm never gonna speak against another human being wanting to be happy. Of course not. But I can see the same thing happening with LaMarcus Aldridge, right? He doesn't really want to be in San Antonio. Spurs don't really want him, so they come to the agreement of buyout, and LaMarcus goes to join the Brooklyn Nets, who are now the best team in the NBA. I picked the Lakers before the season started, and I'll get to Andre Drummond in just a little while because I do think he really, really helps them. But I can't deny it anymore. And listen, I picked them to play the Nets in the finals. I can't deny it anymore. The Nets are the best team in basketball. I mean, you can't. What have I seen that tells me otherwise? Clippers are up and down. Jazz, do we really trust them? Lakers can't stay healthy, and even when they are healthy, I don't think they'll be able to build enough team chemistry, get enough minutes together before the playoffs. By the time the playoffs get here, what seed will they be? The Nets, despite injuries to Kevin Durant, who I believe is the best player on earth, despite Kyrie Irving missing games for personal reasons, and then we saw the great news: he and his fiance just had a little baby. I think it was a baby girl. So, man, congratulations to Kyrie Irving and his fiance. But he had to miss 3 games for that, and so he's been in and out of the lineup. And James Harden has been outstanding. Now, I still don't believe James Harden's the MVP. I think Giannis is. Look at his numbers. Look at Bucks would not. I don't know if the Bucks would be a playoff team without Giannis in the East. Okay, without James Harden, yeah, you still got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You're just fine. Like, if the award is the BP, the best player, yeah, the best player this season over the course of however many games it's been, almost, 50 games or so, close to it. Yeah, James Harden's been the best player. But most valuable player, it's been Giannis. He stayed healthy. The Bucks somehow are a top 3 seed. As a matter of fact, I think they're above Brooklyn in the standings right now, and Brooklyn's way more talented than Milwaukee, and it shows you the greatness of Giannis. People forget the man's the reigning 2-time MVP. He's an unbelievable player. But let me get to the meat of my argument here. I'm hearing a lot of people. I love this. I'm hearing a lot of people today saying, "Oh, it's not fair, right? The Brooklyn Nets, oh, come on, you're signing Blake Griffin, you're signing LaMarcus Aldridge." Let me ask you a question. If you're running a business and there are 2 employees coming from other companies who aren't happy where they used to be, and they want to join you, and they for a fact that they're gonna be happier there, they're going to get along with people. They're going to, make your business better. They're going to help you succeed. You're going to slam the door in their face and say no? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to hire them on the spot. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, and people are just killing Kevin Durant today. Kevin Durant, he joined the super team in Golden State. He did. Listen, they were there. I can't deny it. They were 73-9 and should have won the championship in 2016. Came within a Kyrie Irving shot away of winning their 2nd straight NBA Finals, and Steph Curry was the back-to-back, including unanimous MVP. But KD joins the Warriors, and listen, I'm a diehard Golden State Warriors fan, but we got to 2019 when he's injured for an extended period of time, and they're playing a Toronto Raptors team that wasn't as talented. They were deeper, but weren't as talented. I mean, come on, man. You got the Splash Brothers. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. You got Draymond, who've been playing great. Iguodala. And so, Steve Kerr, great coach. Better coach than Nick Nurse. And they're running this Toronto team, and all of a sudden it's like, oh boy, they really need Kevin Durant to save their bacon. And, if you remember that series, game 2, they won by the skin of their teeth. Iguodala, that was the game where you had the infamous Max Kellerman quote, "Fate of the universe on the line. I want Iguodala," right? That was where that came from, because Iguodala saved them, right? In game 2, they won their first game of that series, and then they lose 2 straight games at home at Oracle Arena. Yeah, in game 4, they had Steph and Clay. Game 3, there was no Clay, but Steph dropped 47, and they still lost by double digits. And so we get to game 5, and KD comes back, and before he unfortunately tears his Achilles, Golden State is destroying Toronto. Like, Kawhi's out of a rhythm. Van Vliet's not himself. Kyle Lowry's not himself. Gasol becomes a liability defensively. I mean, Golden State is just exposing Toronto. And then Kevin Durant, of course, unfortunately gets hurt, and it goes back to what it had been in the series beforehand. Toronto looking like the better basketball team. So people can criticize Kevin Durant, but Golden State struggled without him. I mean, they did. They struggled without Kevin Durant. And so he goes to Brooklyn, and people are criticizing, oh my goodness, he's with Kyrie Irving. Oh, you got to trade for James Harden. Oh, is that not enough? You got to get Blake Griffin. You got to get LaMarcus Aldridge. First of all, hold your horses. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge aren't the 2015 version of themselves. You know, the all-star version. I mean, listen, both guys can still play. Blake can absolutely still play. But they're not in their primes anymore. So if you're Kevin Durant and Blake Griffin says, hey, I want to join the Brooklyn Nets, what are you supposed to say? No? You're going to say no? If LaMarcus Aldridge says, hey, KD, I want to join the team, see if we can go win us a championship. What are you supposed to? Nah, we're good. We're good enough. We're good enough. And I love LeBron James. I think if LeBron wins the finals this year, I'm going to crown him the GOAT. I think Jordan's the GOAT today. But if LeBron wins this finals, with the injury he dealt with the injuries the Lakers have dealt with the stacked team in Brooklyn, New York, if he wins the title this year against Brooklyn and beats a more talented Clippers team, he's the GOAT. He is the GOAT. But you know I love LeBron. But his fans drive me crazy sometimes. They drive me nuts. Because I hear LeBron fans criticizing Kevin Durant, who, let's be honest, KD probably recruited these guys to come join Brooklyn. That's most likely, right? That gives them the best chance to win a title, and KD is a master at recruiting guys. Like, he wanted Kyrie Irving, and then, of course, they recruited James Harden, and who would, force his way out of Houston and got traded to Brooklyn. And so why can LeBron kind of do the same thing with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, and then a couple of years ago with Anthony Davis? I don't criticize LeBron for it. I applaud him for it. I think it shows an intelligence. I think it shows an intelligence of a human being, and a maturity, an emotional maturity. People, criticize Durant because he's sensitive. He is sensitive on Twitter. I think now he's not as bad as he used to be. He kind of comes at fans just, for fun, whatever. But he is thin-skinned. He's thin-skinned. But it shows him an emotional maturity from KD that he can say, you know what? I'm the best dang scorer the game's ever seen. I'm just going in the mind of Kevin Durant. This is what he's probably thinking. I'm the best scorer this game's ever seen. Man, I'm 7 foot, can shoot over anybody. I've got 2 rings. I got an MVP. I got 2 finals MVPs. I hit 2 dagger shots in Cleveland to beat LeBron James in back-to-back NBA finals. The team I left hasn't been the same since. I go to Brooklyn, and it just changes the culture immediately. But let's bring guys together. Let's add pieces to the team to make us better, to give me a better chance. Who wouldn't pass up a better shot to win the championship? I mean, I hear these. I heard these old. I remember when KD went to Golden State in 2016. Now, of course, again, as a Warriors fan, when I remember I actually turned on the TV that day. It was July 4th. I turned on the TV. It was like at lunchtime, and it was actually, I think it was Colin Cowherd's show, and it showed in the bottom, breaking news: Kevin Durant signs with the Golden State Warriors, and I'm just beside myself. I'm just jumping up and down. I was hyped. But I remember when KD joined Golden State, and you had all these NBA legends, right? Charles Barkley, Clyde Frazier, Reggie Miller. I mean, just killing KD for this. Say, oh, you ran from competition. You're joining the team that beat you after you had a 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals. And I say, so you're supposed to pass up a better shot at winning the championship? That makes no logical sense, because KD knows. KD's a businessman. He's got like 35. He got that 35 ventures that he owns and that he runs. He's a businessman, and he knows 20, 30 years down the road, you know what they're going to think of me? They're not going to remember that I had a 3-1 lead in Golden State in 2016. You know what they're going to remember? They're going to see, when they go down the list of NBA champions, they're going to see 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers NBA champions, runner-up, Golden State Warriors. And they're going to see, I joined Golden State, 2017 champion Golden State Warriors, 2018 champion Golden State Warriors. And they're going to see, I won back-to-back finals MVPs and was incredible in both. I argue Steph could have easily won in 2018, but 2017, KD was the undisputed best player in the series. And in 2018, he was the best player in the series as well. And they see, okay, now I go to Brooklyn, and Golden State's no longer in the championship bubble, although I do think they can be once Klay comes back. He goes to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's been irrelevant for 15 years. Kyrie joins them. And 20, 30 years from now, they're going to see Kevin Durant, let's just throw this number out, 4-time NBA champion, 4-time finals MVP, and mentioned probably as the second greatest small forward ever to LeBron James. Because I think with 2 more championships, KD passes Larry Bird. I don't care what anybody says. I love Larry Bird. He's a top 10 player ever. Second greatest Celtic ever. I think Bill Russell's the greatest Celtic. But Kevin Durant is going to see, got more rings than Larry. Not as many as MVPs, but more finals MVPs. Won championships with 2 teams. Went to NBA finals with 3 teams. This is the way he's thinking, and I don't blame him. This is the way LeBron thought. You know, and it's, I don't understand this from former NBA players, and no disrespect to them whatsoever. And I hated to drop names of, Hall of Fame players, Charles Barkley and Clyde Frazier and Reggie Miller, all-time great players. And I understand they come from a different era, but what it read to me was kind of jealousy. Like, man, if I thought of this when I played. Like, instead of me having to carry, Reggie Miller having to carry the Pacers, if you're Charles Barkley, never won championship, having to carry the Philadelphia 76ers and the Rockets. Dang, I could have just linked up with Michael Jordan or something, or maybe the Utah Jazz. Chuck could have linked with the Jazz later in his career with Stockton and Malone, and I could have got a ring and maybe a finals MVP. Who knows? Chuck could still play late in the 90s. And so that's what I think these players are thinking, like, man, I blew it. And so they take out their frustration on KD. And they take out their frustration on LeBron. I mean, people are killing LeBron when in 2010, right? The decision, it's, the broadcast on ESPN live with Jim Gray, right? Who's the author. I'd love to get one of Jim Gray's book. It's called like Talking with Goats or Walking with Goats, something like that. I've heard it's a great book. But Jim Gray's interviewing LeBron. He says, LeBron, where are you going? And LeBron says, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach, join the Miami Heat. And we had already known that Dwayne Wade had already re-signed to stay with Miami, and Chris Bosh left the Toronto Raptors to join the Heat. And so then LeBron goes there, and we find out, of course, back in the 2008 Olympics, they were recruiting each other to join the Heat. And so they were looking at it like, Chris Bosh, why do I have to carry the Raptors? Dwayne Wade, why do I have to carry the Heat? LeBron, why do I have to carry the Cavs despite being the best player on the planet? Let's just link up and win finals. Why would we retire? Is it you don't get a medal for it being hard for you and you not winning championships? Like, you don't listen, all championships are hard, man. It's the NBA finals, man. These are the best players in the world. In the world. These are the 400 best basketball players on planet Earth. It's hard to win finals. Everybody's talented. But it's like you don't get a special award for saying, well, it was hard for me and I ran into Jordan in the finals, or I ran into Magic or Bird in the finals. They're just going to look at you and say, well, you didn't win any rings. Or you only won like 1 ring. You could have won 3 or 4. That's what we look at. We look at MVPs. We look at rings. I'm sorry, but it matters. And KD sees this. LeBron sees this. Listen, by the way, I love what Brooklyn's doing. The Brooklyn Nets are following the Tampa Bay Buccaneers method. Just keep adding good players. Tampa Bay last year, they were already, I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl before the season started. And of course they ended up doing that. But over the course of the season, hey, let's go get Leonard Fournette before the season starts. And then they're 6-2. Hey, let's go get Antonio Brown. Right? I know we're great. We're great at receiver. Let's go get Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown was huge for them in the playoffs. And Leonard Fournette was huge for them in the playoffs. Let's go get Gronk out of retirement. Being aggressive, being in the win now mode instead of being nice and conservative and not taking any big risks. You know, the Boston Celtics, right? The Celtics have been good for years, for the better part of a decade. They've been good. They got to Eastern Conference Finals, but they can't get to the top because they're not aggressive in trades. They're not aggressive in free agency. They draft well. Look at Jason Tatum. Look at Jaylen Brown, right? And so, other players they've drafted. Terry Rozier, look what he's doing in Charlotte. He's playing good basketball over there. But you got to be aggressive. You got to go for it. Would you? Let me ask you, the sports fan. I don't know if I think it's kind of is hypothetical, but let me ask you this question: would you rather your team be good for 5 years and you get one championship in those 5 years, and then you're terrible for the next 15, or would you rather your team be great for 15 years but never win a finals, or depending on what sport it is, never win a championship, and then be kind of average for 5? Give me the championship as a fan, right? I mean, even if it's one, it's better than none. It's better than not winning a championship at all. That's the problem with the Celtics. They're not aggressive. This is why Brooklyn is, in my view, probably going to go ahead and win the finals. Once they get healthy, once KD gets back, once Kyrie's back in the lineup, get LaMarcus Aldridge inserted in there. James Harden's playing great, right? Blake Griffin has been a perfect fit there so far. I don't know why people are criticizing them. I really don't get it. If these guys are available, what are you supposed to do? Just sit still and say, nah, we're good enough. We're good enough. We don't need them. No, you're like, hey, let's go get them. They'll make us better. And if it doesn't work, okay, we can let them go. Low risk, high reward. You always plunge for those deals. And you see what, again, Blake Griffin, his heart wasn't in Detroit. And so he and the Pistons came together like, I don't want to be here anymore. He goes to Brooklyn. I'm not saying it's the old Blake Griffin, because it's not, but he's playing good basketball up there in New York. So I don't get the criticism of people being aggressive. I don't get the criticism of why would you sit back and say, you know what, we're good enough. We're good enough. Like, why not get better? And the Brooklyn Nets are smart. They realize this. The LA Lakers, let me get to the Lakers. They're smart. They realize this. Let's go get Andre Drummond. Right? 17 points a game, 17 and a half points a game, 13, 14 rebounds. He's been the best rebounder in the NBA for the last few years. Let's go get Andre Drummond. He's an upgrade over Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol has kind of been disappointing with the Lakers this season. Andre Drummond's an upgrade. He's been to an all-star game. Let's go get him. And I like to pick up a lot. I really do. He's a good rim protector. Of course, I already mentioned he's a great rebounder. Again, gives you 17 and a half a game. That's pretty darn good. And so I still say today, though, while he 100% makes the Lakers better, absolutely, they're a better basketball team today than they were 2 days ago. But I still say, because last week when LeBron got hurt, I said the Lakers have one last hope. Trade for Bradley Beal to keep yourself alive. To keep yourself up there in the Western Conference standings, to be able to build chemistry with some of the younger players, right? The Kyle Kuzmas, the Taylor Horton Tuckers, and some of the veteran players, KCP, Montrezl Harrell. And they, of course, that didn't end up happening, and that was the end of the Lakers. By the way, the Clippers signed Rajon Rondo, or they traded for Rajon Rondo. He added what they needed. 2 things: a point guard and leadership. Kawhi's not a leader. Paul George isn't a leader, and neither have natural point guard skills. Of course, we all know Rondo does. That he got the nickname Playoff Rondo for a reason, because he plays big in the playoffs. Paul George dang sure doesn't play big in the playoffs, and Kawhi's been hit and miss. So, the Lakers are better today. Absolutely. I think this absolutely guarantees that they'll beat the Jazz, because I think that even that was in question once LeBron went down, whether he can get back to full health and Lakers can build some kind of momentum going into the playoffs. Because listen, you say the Lakers have won the last 2 games against rebuilding Cleveland and rebuilding Orlando, who just traded Vucevic and Fournier and Aaron Gordon. The Magic are bad. They're in tank mode. They're in rebuild mode. Congratulations. That's neither of those are impressive wins. Yeah, when they were playing good teams like New Orleans, they got demolished by New Orleans. So this stuff matters. And again, credit to the Lakers. Andre Drummond, good for him. Good for the Lakers. They got better today or yesterday when they signed him. Of course, he was bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I feel like, and we see it a lot. We see it with big brands. We see it with the Yankees. Anytime they sign a free agent who's a good player, but not like a great player, not like a franchise-changing Derek Jeter guy. Like, they signed, I remember they signed the pitcher, Paxton, a couple of years ago. James Paxton, I think was his name. They signed the pitcher, and Yankees fans like, oh, we got an ace. He's a 2. He's not an ace, right? Justin Verlander's an ace. Jacob deGrom is an ace. Max Scherzer is an ace. Okay, the Paxton is not an ace. We see with the Dallas Cowboys. Anytime they sign a big name free agent, they signed Aldon Smith last year. Aldon Smith's going to be 12, 13, 14 sack guy like he was in San Francisco. No, he's a good passer. He's not a great pass rusher. And we're seeing it out with the Lakers. We saw it was all over NBA Twitter, and it was over, in the media in Los Angeles. And I get it. It's exciting, right? You get better. But, it felt like, call me crazy, Laker Nation, but it seemed like y'all were more excited to get Andre Drummond than you were LeBron a few years back. Because I remember when LeBron signed in 2018, it was like, this is a Kobe town. I get it. It's always going to be Kobe City now and forever. But not everybody was thrilled when LeBron signed because Kobe and LeBron, God rest Kobe's soul, Kobe and LeBron were really close. Kobe fans and LeBron fans were not, right? So there was kind of that like mixed emotion aspect to it. And so there's a lot of hype with Andre Drummond. I get it. He's a former All-Star. He's the best rebounder in the league. Gives you 17 points a game. It's great. He makes you better. Absolutely. But you're acting like y'all just brought back Shaq, prime Shaq from the time portal, or Kareem. Like Andre Drummond's going to be the next great Laker big man. Or you just added another guy to the level of Anthony Davis. Okay. Andre Drummond's a very, like a borderline all-star. Look at his numbers. But let's not freak out and act like he's like the third star of a big 3. It's a big 2. It's LeBron and AD. You got 2 superstars in your team. So don't freak out about this. Because listen, I've said this for a week now. I worry about the Lakers. I feel like LeBron getting hurt was kind of the nail in the coffin because they've dealt with injuries. AD wasn't really himself the entire regular season. Of course, he'll be back in a couple weeks, we assume, from the Achilles issue, and that is never an injury you want to mess with. But AD's going to come back. LeBron's in a couple weeks. LeBron's going to come back in about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. But by the time that comes, here comes the playoffs. By the way, the Lakers' schedule is not easy. It is not easy at all. And so we get to the playoffs, and they are still. There's no way LeBron's going to be totally 100% by that time because they're going to want to get him back, get him some action, instead of just throwing him back out there in the playoffs and risk further injury. And so he's going to be ready to go in the playoffs. He'll be fine. He'll be playoff LeBron. He's one of the 2 or 3 greatest postseason performers in NBA history. Anthony Davis, I assume by the playoffs he'll be fine. But playing together matters. That's really the only concern I have at this point about Brooklyn. The whole team hasn't really played together much. That's why you're really hoping Kevin Durant can get back soon, because once he does, I think his timetable is shorter than that of Anthony Davis. I see Kevin Durant back out on the floor before I see Anthony Davis back out. And we saw it the Clippers last year. I had the Clippers win in the finals last year, but guess what? Low managing, they didn't play together enough, and they got exposed by the Denver Nuggets in the second round in games 5 through 7. So playing together matters. It really does. So that's my thoughts on the LaMarcus Aldridge signing by the Nets. I think people are really just overreacting to it and just, I mean, come on, hold your horses, guys. If LaMarcus Aldridge, if you're an NBA team in contention for a title, clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference, and LaMarcus Aldridge says, hey, can I play for y'all? Hey, sure, absolutely. Come on in. You make us better. By the way, Shamet, they got Shamet, who's a great three-point shooter. You got Nick Claxton, who I remember playing at Georgia, was a good player, good big man for them. Jeff Green, right? Bruce, I think his name's Bruce Brown, if I remember correctly, for Brooklyn. I worried about their depth when they traded for James Harden because they're trading Karis LeVert and they're trading Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. Hey, their bench is better today than it was to start the season. If your bench consists of LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin and Shamed and all these different Jeff Green, Claxton, you're deep. And not to mention you got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. I'm sorry, I don't see anybody beating this team. And then Andre Drummond makes the Lakers better, but still don't think it puts them over the top as far as beating the Nets. My gut feeling tells me they'll beat the Clippers because the Clippers, the Clippers, they'll find a way to screw it up. The Clippers will find a way to mess it up. With the signing of Andre Drummond, I was a little skeptical. Can the Lakers beat the Clippers, especially with the trade, them trading for Rondo? I think they can now. I feel confident they'll meet in the Western Conference Finals probably, or in the second round. It'll go 7 games, and the Lakers will find a way to win at the end because that's what LeBron does in the playoffs. So that's just my thoughts on that. Now, you saw the comment for earlier in the show. Let's talk about a sport I don't really talk about that much on the show, and that's soccer. The U.S. men's team, which is a disgrace to the great United States of America, they once again missed out on the Olympics. They will not qualify for Tokyo, which, of course, the Olympics got postponed from last year. It's going to be in Tokyo this year, 2021. Can't wait for it. U.S. men's national soccer team will not qualify. They, once again, weren't good enough. I read this is the 4th time in the last 5 Olympics that the U.S. men's team will not play. And so it harkens back to something that I've talked about probably from the beginning of the show. I've talked about this since the beginning of Carving It Up because we started the show not long after the great women's team won their 2nd straight World Cup, back-to-back champs, 2015 and 2019. And this is a team that sells out Soldier Field in Chicago, which is a huge stadium, one of the biggest in the NFL. They sell out Soldier Field in Chicago. Their jerseys are among the most highest sell jerseys on Fanatics.com or wherever you get your sports apparel. Like the U.S. women's national team, it's always up there, right? Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Carly Lloyd. I mean, just loaded team. Yet the guys still make more than the women. Can somebody please explain that to me? So somebody, I think it's like the U.S. Soccer Organization. Could somebody please explain this to me? How, we had our women out there beating Thailand 13-0 a couple years back, and the men can't even get to the dang Olympics. They can't even get to the Olympics. Our women are the back-to-back champs of the World Cup. Back-to-back, 2 straight. So this is just, I'm telling you, it makes me so mad when I see it. Because, ma'am, can somebody, listen, this is not a political issue. Equal pay is not a political issue. We're not talking about, healthcare, gun control. Equal pay is not political. Okay. If is better than another group in a certain profession, they should make more money. If you got, it's kind of the equivalent. Let's think of this because we like to rank NBA players, right? Like more than any other sport, we love to rank our NBA players. This is the difference in our women's team is LeBron James and our men's team is, I hate to throw a name out there because I respect the kid, but Gary Trent Jr., who just got traded by the Portland Trailblazers. Or Enes Kanter. I don't know, like a mid-level player. Heck, that might even be too much. Right? They're probably Brian Scalabrine for crying out loud. I mean, come on. It's the difference in LeBron James and Brian Scalabrine, who retired, I don't know how long ago. So, it is ridiculous. If we saw, hate to bring it up again, but hey, it happened. Before the NCAA tournament started, we saw the difference in the men's weight room and the women's weight room, and the difference in the men's swag bag and the women's swag bag, and what the men were fed and what the women were fed, and it was a drastic difference. And we see once again in soccer, the U.S. men's team is hot garbage on the 4th of July, while our women's team is the best in the world, the best on this beautiful planet. And the men's team are among the worst, yet the men still make more money. Please explain that to me, somebody. It's just, I don't get it, man. Like if I'm doing the same job as a woman, as a female coworker, and she's better at her job than I am, she should get paid more than I do. It's that simple. I mean, come on, people. This shouldn't even be a discussion. It's 2021, man. We shouldn't be having this discussion about whether women deserve equal pay to men. Dang right they deserve equal pay. I mean, come on now. I saw a thing the other day. Sue Bird, a player in the WNBA, I have great respect for, the greatest point guard in WNBA history. And her accolades in the WNBA are similar to that of LeBron's accolades in the NBA. And she makes, fractions of what LeBron makes. Now, I know, listen, I think LeBron's the second greatest player of all time with an opportunity. If he wins this year's finals against the Nets, I think he's the greatest player ever if that happens. LeBron has meant more to the NBA than Sue Bird has to the WNBA. I mean, he has. That's just the facts of it. He should get paid more, but the gap shouldn't be that big. I mean, come on now. Sue Bird's a top 5 player in WNBA history. The gap shouldn't be that massive. Sue Bird, along with the rest of the WNBA, got to go overseas to earn more money. It's ridiculous, man. And I love it when people say, "Oh, well, the women, the WNBA, they don't generate the same kind of money that the men do." That's because not enough money is put into the WNBA. Right? That's the problem. The marketing is not good enough. Okay? The putting these women out there, it's not good enough. So the WNBA doesn't do a good enough job at putting. They've got some great players, man. I mean, you know me, I'm the biggest Candace Parker fan in the world, right? Lady Vol I think she won back-to-back championships there. She does an amazing job on TNT with Shaq and D Wade. And then you got players, Liz Cambage. You've got Diana Taurasi still getting buckets at this stage in her career. Of course, Sue Bird doing what she does. Brianna Stewart, Alina Deladon. I mean, there's some great players. I'm trying to remember the girl's name, the woman's name, Skylar Diggins Smith. It's a loaded league, and it's not enough money is being put into the WNBA as there is the NBA. And then the same but it's different though with women's soccer. The jerseys are very popular. Everybody buys their jerseys. They fill up Soldier Field in Chicago, their home stadium. They've won back-to-back World Cups, and yet they still don't make as much money as the men do, and the men can't even get to the freaking Olympics. They can't even get there. I mean, women's, that's an afterthought. Getting to the Olympics, man, that's just that's a breeze. Come on, we ain't worried about that. We're worried about taking the whole darn thing home. We're worried about winning gold medals. Men are just looking to be participants. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, final topic of the day. Saw this news over the weekend. The NFL is looking, or is likely to start a 17-game season next year. Of course, we know for the last 43 years, going back to 1978, they've went by a 16-game schedule. I think before that it was 12. Then in 78 they went to 16, and that stayed the same for 43 years until today. And the players don't like it. I saw the tweet from Alvin Kamara. He doesn't like it. Cam Jordan. They don't like it. I thought Torrey Smith, former NFL wide receiver, made a really good point. He said, if they're going to do this, then the practices need to look drastically different. Because you can't, football is, a coach of mine once told me, and I never played football, I played basketball. And a basketball coach once told me, I totally agree with this, that people talk about football as a collision, or a contact sport, and basketball is a contact sport. No. Basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. You are hitting other human beings, other grown men, fully padded, right? Helmets, pads. The big 300-pound linemen, 250-pound linebackers. Heck, look at some of the quarterbacks today. Cam Newton, Dak Prescott. Big guys. There's grown men out there hitting each other. So, I mean, it's a brutal, brutal, violent game. Of course, I know some of the rules have changed. It is still a violent game. And so, I don't like it. First of all, this is how I'm weird. Maybe you guys disagree with this, but this is how I'm weird. Like, just the odd number of games, that just messes with me. But in all seriousness, though, you're going to have, and we saw there's not going to be an extra bye. It's going to be 17 games in 18 weeks. And so you're putting through, we heard players a few years ago say, we need to get rid of Thursday night football. I mean, players are constantly suffering, not just like little, getting nicked up a little bit. We're talking about major, like torn ACLs, torn Achilles, major injuries on Thursday night football because you're playing on Sunday and then 4 days later you're playing again. Like that is tough. And that's brutal on your body. And, the players almost got Thursday night football outlawed. And now they're going to have to play 17 games in 18 weeks. 16 games in 17 weeks was already brutal. I mean, guys, I've heard multiple former players saying, you guys, the fans, the media, they don't understand. Like us fans and the media don't understand what players got to deal with as far as their bodies late in the season, what they're having to tape up and take, these medications and different things like just to try and keep their body together late in the season. And then you add another 60-minute game to it. I mean, I'm not listening. I think it's kind of a bad look for the NFL, to be honest, because then it shows, and listen, I understand you're always going to look to make the bread, right? Yeah, you're always going to look to get more of that. But if you turn around and you're saying, hey, we're going to put you through another 60-minute game, you gotta be kidding me. Man, my body is exhausted in week 17, and if we get in the playoffs, it's got more of a beating to deal with. And now we got a 17th game. I talked about this last year. I remember when it was proposed. It was during the pandemic. You had the extra wild card game in both conferences proposed and the 17-game schedule, which I heard in a few years could turn into an 18-game schedule, which is just outright insane. But I was like, hey, I'm all for having the 2 seed play a 7 seed in the playoffs, because used to it was first 2 seeds get a bye, 3 seed in wild card weekend, 3 seed plays the 6 seed, 4 seed plays the 5 seed. Now they said, okay, only the first seed gets a bye and the 2 seed plays the 7 seed. And I was like, hey, I love that. It's an extra playoff game. That's different. It puts more emphasis on getting the 1 seed and getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs and getting that extra week off, which is huge, obviously. But the extra regular season game, it's like, man, the only thing this benefits is the owner's pockets. I mean, do the players get a raise from this? I don't know if they do. Based on the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, I don't think the players get any kind of raise from the extra game. The owners do, the league does. So it's kind of twisted, really, if you think about it. So it's I don't get it. I don't get the players don't like it. Not real sure if the coaches like it. It reeks to me of we're about money and nothing else. Like, kind of screw your guys' health. We're just about getting that money and just, whatever happens to y'all happens to y'all. And the NFL is dealing with some legal issues already right now that I've discussed on the show, which could be badly damaging to the league. So I haven't heard really anybody say this, but I don't think it's a good look for the league. So, I mean, listen, we got to see how the 17th game plays out next year. I do know they're going to shorten the preseason from 4 games to 3 games, but come on, what does that really do? Nobody plays in the preseason anymore. No, I mean, no star players play more than 15, 20 snaps. I mean, come on. What does the preseason matter? College football doesn't use a preseason, and they're not an unorganized mess. The well-coached teams aren't an unorganized mess in week 1. So it doesn't make really any sense to me whatsoever. So we just got to see how this extra preseason, or excuse me, extra 17th game plays out. Yeah, not a great look for the NFL in my view. So that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for stopping by on YouTube Live and Twitter. Thank you so much to our podcast listeners on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Be sure, again, a week from today, my interview with Dr. John Deloney from the Dr. John Deloney Show. He's got a new book I've actually got sitting right here called Redefining Anxiety, what it is, what it's not, and how to get your life back. I interviewed him earlier today. He was incredibly gracious. Props to him. So the interview is going to be uploaded next Monday morning. So I'll be, continue to kind of promote that a little bit. So y'all be sure to check it out. Great dude, great interview. You can call into a show, and hey, he dives into people's deepest personal and mental struggles. So looking forward to y'all listening to that. So hope everybody has a great week. Enjoy March Madness tonight and tomorrow. And next time I'll be on, we'll have a Final Four, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 2 years. It's going to be awesome. God bless y'all. Y'all stay safe. Peace out.